You want to know the difference between a victim and a survivor. About 3 years, $47 in my bank account, and a USB drive that could destroy 5 lives. My name is Maya Chen. I'm 30 years old, and 3 years ago I was supposed to be dead. Not metaphorically dead. Not my career is dead or my dreams are dead. I mean actually, literally dead. Buried 6 feet under while my fiancé and my best friend sipped champagne at what was supposed to be my wedding. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You learn to be invisible. And invisible people, we see everything. This is the story of how I came back from the dead. And trust me, you'll want to hear every single second of what happened next. 3 years ago, I had everything figured out. At 27, I was the junior creative director at Meridian Marketing, one of Chicago's top advertising firms. Not bad for a girl who grew up in a studio apartment in Queens with a single mom working 3 jobs. My fiancé, Derek Halloway, was the golden boy. Tall, Harvard Business School came from old money, the kind of family that has a summer home and a winter home and acts like that's normal. His parents barely tolerated me, but Derek said he loved me for being real, for not being another trust fund princess. My best friend since college, Simone Richards, was my maid of honor. We'd been inseparable for 9 years, shared an apartment for 5 of those. She knew everything about me, my dreams, my fears, my passwords. She was the sister I never had. And then there was my boss, Marcus Webb. 52, married, 3 kids, and the kind of mentor who actually opened doors instead of just talking about it. He'd promoted me twice in 3 years, called me his secret weapon. I had a corner office with a view of Lake Michigan, a ring that cost more than my mom made in a year, a wedding planned at the Drake Hotel for 200 guests. I had everything. And I had no idea that all 4 of them, Derek, Simone, Marcus, and his wife Patricia, were systematically destroying me. It started small, little things I told myself I was imagining. A client meeting I wasn't invited to. A campaign idea I'd pitched that suddenly became Marcus's brainchild. Derek coming home later and later, always with explanations that made sense but felt off. Then, 6 weeks before the wedding, I got food poisoning. Violent, horrible, hospitalized for 3 days food poisoning. The doctors were baffled. They'd never seen a reaction like that to shellfish, which I'd eaten my whole life. Simone brought me soup every day. Derek seemed worried but distant. Marcus sent flowers. I recovered, but something felt wrong in my body. Fatigue that wouldn't go away. Brain fog. My doctor ran tests but found nothing conclusive. Stress, she said. Wedding planning can be brutal. 2 weeks before the wedding, I found the first email. I wasn't snooping, I swear I wasn't. Derek left his laptop open and a notification popped up. An email from an address I didn't recognize. The preview read, "After Saturday, everything changes. You'll finally be free and we'll have everything we." I clicked it before thinking. The email thread went back 4 months. Derek and Simone, my fiancé and my best friend, but it wasn't an affair or not just an affair. They were planning something about life insurance policies, about my accident-prone nature lately, about how Marcus had his part handled, and they just needed to make sure the dosage was right this time. I stopped breathing. I scrolled up, found emails from Marcus's work account, from an email address that, when I Googled it, belonged to his wife Patricia, who I'd met exactly twice and who worked as a pharmacist. They were going to kill me. I should have gone to the police right then, but I was in shock, and I made the mistake of confronting Derek that night. The moment I mentioned the emails, his face changed. The mask slipped, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before, something cold. Maya, he said calmly, you're not thinking clearly. You've been so stressed lately, so paranoid. I read the emails, Derek. I know what you're planning. He sighed like I was a child having a tantrum. Then he called Simone. She arrived within 20 minutes. She must have been nearby, waiting. They both sat me down with this concerned, pitying expression that made my skin crawl. Honey, Simone said, taking my hand, Derek told me you've been having these episodes, seeing things that aren't there. The doctor said the food poisoning might have affected your cognition. What? No, I'm not. We think you need help, Derek interrupted. Real help. We've already talked to Marcus, and he agrees you need time off. We're going to postpone the wedding until you're better. I tried to pull up the emails on Derek's laptop, but they were gone. Deleted. He'd wiped them while I was talking to Simone. There were emails, I insisted, my voice rising. You're trying to kill me for my life insurance. They exchanged a look. That's when I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. Derek called someone. Within an hour, 2 men in uniforms arrived. EMTs, he said. But the way they held my arms wasn't medical. It was restraint. For your own safety, Simone whispered as they led me away. We love you, Maya. We just want you to get better. They didn't take me to a hospital. They took me to Green Lake Behavioral Health, a private psychiatric facility 2 hours outside Chicago, the kind of place where wealthy families send their troubled relatives to be forgotten. Derek had me committed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold, claiming I was a danger to myself. By the time the 72 hours were up, he'd gotten a doctor to sign off on an extended hold. 2 weeks became a month. A month became 3 months. Every time I told the truth about what Derek and the others were planning, it went in my file as persistent paranoid delusions. When I got angry, they sedated me. When I cried, they sedated me. When I demanded to call my mother, they said she'd been contacted and agreed this was for the best. That was a lie. They never called her. Later, I found out Derek told her I was on an extended honeymoon in Europe and had asked not to be contacted. The medications they gave me were real. Heavy antipsychotics that made me sleep 20 hours a day, made my thoughts syrupy and slow, made me stop fighting. During this time, while I was locked away and drugged into compliance, Derek married Simone. They used my wedding. My dress was altered to fit her. My flowers, my cake, my venue. They told guests I'd had a mental breakdown and disappeared, and Derek had found comfort in Simone during his grief. Marcus gave Simone my job. Derek cashed in the $2 million life insurance policy he'd taken out on me, forged my signature, claimed I'd died overseas, and split it 4 ways. They thought they'd won. They thought I was gone, as good as dead, locked away forever in Green Lake. They forgot that invisible people see everything. My roommate at Green Lake saved my life. Her name was Ruth, and she was 78 years old. She'd been committed by her son 20 years earlier so he could take control of her estate. She was the sanest person I'd ever met. Ruth had been pretending to be medicated for 2 decades. She'd learned to pocket the pills, to act docile, to be invisible. And she taught me. They only have power if you fight them directly, she whispered one night after the orderlies finished their rounds. You want to win, you have to die first. Really die, become nothing. And then, when they've forgotten about you, you rise up. For 4 months, I pretended the medication was working. I stopped insisting on the truth. I played the role of the recovering patient, grateful for their help, ashamed of my delusions. Derek visited once, just to make sure I was properly broken. I smiled at him with glassy eyes and apologized for being so sick. He looked relieved. He stopped paying after that visit. I was no longer a threat, so why waste the money? That's when Green Lake transferred me to the state facility. And that's when I disappeared for real. The state system is broken and overwhelmed. Patients slip through the cracks all the time. 3 weeks after my transfer, during a chaotic shift change, I walked out a side door in borrowed scrubs. No alarms, no chase, no one even noticed for 6 hours. I was dead to them, erased, exactly where I needed to be. I spent a year being dead. I lived in shelters. I worked cash jobs under fake names. I healed, really healed, not from imaginary mental illness, but from trauma, from betrayal. And I planned. See, Derek, Simone, Marcus, and Patricia had made one crucial mistake. They assumed I was helpless. They assumed that because I came from nothing, I didn't know how to fight in their world. But I'd spent 5 years at Meridian Marketing learning exactly how their world worked, how to manipulate narratives, how to build campaigns, how to make people believe anything. And I'd spent 9 years as Simone's best friend, which meant I knew every single password she'd ever used. People don't change their passwords as often as they should. I bought a burner laptop at a pawn shop. Started small, accessing Simone's cloud storage, her email, her files. She'd kept everything, every email, every detail of the plan. She'd even kept a journal documenting how they'd poisoned me, low doses of thallium in my vitamins, purchased by Patricia, how they'd forged documents, how they'd split the insurance money. Why would she keep evidence of a crime? Narcissism. She wanted a record of how clever she'd been. I copied everything to 3 encrypted USB drives, stored them in 3 different safety deposit boxes. Then I started digging into Marcus, his company finances. Turns out he and Patricia had been embezzling from Meridian for 6 years, using fake vendor accounts. My life insurance money had been used to cover their tracks when an audit loomed. Derek's finances showed he'd been in debt, deep debt, gambling problem his family didn't know about. My insurance money had saved him from bankruptcy. Over the next year, I built a case that could destroy all 4 of them. And then I built something better. I built a resurrection. Last spring, I came back from the dead. Not literally, though the looks on their faces almost made me wish I'd done it more dramatically. Instead, I did it strategically. First, I created a new identity. Legal, documented, through a lawyer who specialized in helping domestic violence survivors disappear and restart. My new name was Elise Morgan. I had references, a portfolio of work from overseas agencies, and a killer interview presence. I got hired at Meridian's biggest competitor, Catalyst Creative. Within 3 months, I was their senior creative director. I started poaching Meridian's clients one by one. Not with Maya's style, they would have recognized that. With something better, fresher. Every campaign I pitched was designed to make Marcus and Simone look outdated. Within 6 months, Meridian lost 40% of their client base. The board started asking questions. That's when I sent the first email. Anonymous, untraceable, to Meridian's board of directors. Just a simple, you might want to check vendor account 47,392. The audit began immediately. They found everything. Years of embezzlement. Marcus and Patricia were arrested within a week. Patricia cracked first, offering to testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. During her testimony, she mentioned that insurance situation with the girl who had a breakdown. The insurance company got interested, very interested. They launched their own investigation into the claim Derek had filed. Turns out, insurance fraud is a very serious crime. While Derek was dealing with investigators, I reached out to his family as Elise Morgan, claiming to be a journalist working on a story about financial fraud among Chicago's elite. I asked innocent questions about Derek's recent marriage and lifestyle improvements. His mother, who never liked Simone, started talking, mentioned how sudden the marriage was, how Derek had been nearly bankrupt before his poor former fiancée's tragedy overseas. But there was no death certificate, no body, no proof Maya Chen had ever died. The investigation expanded. I didn't go to the police. I didn't have to. I let them come to me. When the insurance fraud investigators tracked down records of my stay at Green Lake and my disappearance from state care, they found I was alive. Very alive. They found me working under my legal new identity at Catalyst Creative, thriving. I played the traumatized victim perfectly. Told them I'd escaped an abusive situation, that I'd been too afraid to come forward, that I'd just been trying to rebuild my life in peace. I cried when I handed over the USB drives, all those emails, all that evidence, Simone's journal. Derek, Simone, Marcus, and Patricia were all arrested within a week of each other. The charges: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and unlawful commitment. The trial took 8 months. I testified. Calmly, clearly. The jury saw the emails, heard the evidence, watched surveillance footage from Green Lake. All 4 were convicted. Marcus got 15 years. Patricia got 12. Derek got 20. Simone got 25. The journal had been her idea, and it sealed her fate. That was 6 months ago. Today, I'm the chief creative officer at Catalyst Creative. I bought my mom a house in Florida. I'm in therapy, real therapy, with someone who actually helps. I'm also dating someone new. His name is James. He's a high school teacher. And he thinks my biggest achievement is the ad campaign I did for a local animal shelter. He has no idea about any of this. Maybe one day I'll tell him. The thing about revenge is that everyone expects it to be this explosive, dramatic thing. They expect you to gloat, to rub it in, to become as bad as the people who hurt you. But the best revenge is when they destroy themselves and you just watch. When you set up the dominoes so precisely that you barely have to touch them. They thought breaking me would be easy, that I was weak, that I'd just disappear. And I did disappear. I went invisible. But here's what they didn't understand. Invisible doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody's looking at. I'm Maya Chen. I'm 30 years old. 3 years ago, 4 people tried to kill me and erase my existence. Instead, I erased theirs. And I did it with nothing but patience, evidence, and the understanding that the system will eat its own if you serve them up properly. They wanted me dead. But women like me, we don't die, we bounce back. We always bounce back. And when we do, we come back stronger than you can possibly imagine.